Okay, so Vision Films sent across a new one, right? It's a fantasy joint for the family. The film is called Princess Halle and the Jester, right? It is written and directed by Christopher Lombardi. The film is produced by Lombardi and Mary Lombardi. Cinematography is handled by Adam Westbeld. Yeah, there's not really a whole heap of other information, which is, you know, always always rather frustrating, to be honest with you people. Uh, but we have our cast, all right? So Princess Hale is played by Emma Duchesneau. Her father, King Victor, is played by Byron Herlong. Um, her aunt Maggie is played by Segal Mefta, right? Um, Queen Priscilla is played by Rachel Stacy. Henry is played by Duncan Novak. His uncle Santani is played by Jeffrey Lins. Phil is played by Donovan Kirkpatrick. And yeah, that's all the information that is on IMBD, I'm afraid. So any casts that weren't mentioned, yeah, talk to your producers. Right, the film, right? Storyline is this: when goblins attack and capture the king, a young princess escapes with a poor jester returning to his village. Disguising herself as a peasant to conceal her true identity, the princess learns how the subjects of her father live. Meanwhile, her stepmother takes over the throne and offers a reward for her capture. Now the princess must devise a plan with her new friends to rescue her father and restore peace to the kingdom. So, this film uses some different techniques, right? And director Christopher Lombardi had this to say: the future of independent film starts here. Princess Hal and the Jester proves that a small budget is no longer a barrier to telling a large story. We're proud of the technology achievement in bringing this world to life, and we hope we've made a charming film that captures the spirit of golden age cinema for a modern audience. So yeah, now because the big thing with this is they've used AI, right? They've used AI to generate characters, backgrounds, right? Just so many things, special effects, all of that was handled, So yeah, it's interesting, right? Because from the film you can tell the big thing is creating something new, creating a new IP. That's what they're talking about, right? And the way the film ends, there's definitely this window for more. There's definitely that. And I have to commend them for bringing this to life, right? But you've got to do that because it's not easy, right? It's not an easy thing. And I think with all the stuff around AI, because remember, that was a large part of the writer's strike, right? And actually the actors strike, right? Writers, because the fear studios would use AI to write scripts. Actors, because they wanted them to sign away their likeness, basically, right? So technically on reshoots you won't have to bring the actor in, you could use AI, when we get to that point. Or with extras, they wanted, them to sign a likeness so then they can just generate mad extras. And once you've got it, that's it. You don't need them for the next film because you've got that likeness, So that was a big hurdle and very contentious. So someone that's like, you know what, I'm going to embrace it, I'm going to use it. That's a lot of balls, right? It's a lot of balls to be, stand up. Because I'm sure there's probably peers of Lombardi's who not really that infused with what he's done here. But so yeah, got to give him props for being able to do this, to try and create this new world. Now, the film, right? Because I think somewhere it says this, it's kind of fusing Lord of the Rings for the family, right? That's a line I've seen used, and I would have to say, is Lord of the Rings not for the family? Right? I thought Lord of the Rings is, it's a great book. I love that book. I read that book so many times as a kid. You know what I mean? Obviously, I read The Hobbit first. Because I remember school, in infant school, right? A theatre group came and performed it. So it was just like, yo, this is incredible. I loved it. I read it so many times. Then when you find out that the author has more, oh man, obviously I was all over that. I had to check that out. And I didn't find it, creepy, dark or anything. Now, obviously, some people may do. But yeah, I think there's plenty of things out for the family, and you don't necessarily have to make them cute and, safe, as it were. But yeah, Princess Hal and the Jester, it's ambitious. I think that might be the best term for this film. Ambitious. But I feel it reaches, but never quite reaches. Right? Now, there's several reasons for this. I think the AI, the graphics, it's not really realistic. The graphics, the background, you can clearly tell. You can clearly tell what they are, which does make it very jarring. It really does. It makes it very jarring. And you're watching it and you're just like, oh, this is hurting me, man. This is because your mind is telling you this isn't real people, right? But it's being superimposed kind of like that. Look, when I had the conversation the other day with oh my god, who the fuck did I my god, my memory is so bad, people. My memory is so bad. Who did I speak to the other day? Oh, Gabriel Foster Pryor. Jeez, sorry, Gabriel. When I spoke to, like, he told, we talked about a film. We talked about this, AI generated. Well, it was a trailer, and they're making it into a film. Next Stop Paris, and you watch it, and again, there's moments in it where you're just like, oh, that looked kind of real, but for the most part, it's evident what it is, right? It's evident that this is generated graphics, and you're kind of thrown out of what it is. Because I think if it's sold as an animation, right? Love, Death and Rockets or Robots, I feel, whatever one it is, I think it's Robots, right? On Netflix, the David Fincher and George Miller animated anthology. It's animated, And some of the graphics with some of those stories are incredible. Some of those graphics are incredible. But because you know it's animated, you can go with it. You can flow with what you're seeing. But with this, because they're trying to fuse the two, it just becomes very jarring, right? Like there's scenes of them, on horseback, but it's clear they're not on horseback, right? And then you'll cut to another bit of them like from the back on the horse, but you can clearly see this is generated graphics, right? The fire, because it never looks like it's in the same space as the actor. And because of that, right? So you can see there's a lot of green screen going on. So sometimes the reactions from the actors don't mirror what's actually meant to be happening. You know what I mean? Like if a dragon suddenly appears, you've got one person being a bit over the top, like, ah, and the other is just like, wait, you know what I mean? So it doesn't quite work. It doesn't, and you have this other thing, right? You've got Dakota the Dragon that reminded me a lot. I think it was a game, Spyro the Dragon on the PlayStation. I believe that's the name of it, right? Their dragon definitely reminded me of that. And the size of Dakota, Hell's Dragon, right? It's 1 minute you think it's one size, later on in the film, let's say. It looks like it's one size, but then you see it in another bit and it's different, right? So there's this inconsistency with sizes. We also get things like there's one point when we get a Ferris wheel, which is very jarring on considering we have this fantasy setting and they're on horseback and all of this, and then suddenly there's a Ferris wheel. It doesn't quite work. Doesn't quite work. People getting thrown against walls, but then getting up is it's an odd one, right? And then you have characters that suddenly can fly or breathe fire, which seems out of nowhere. And then also going against what we know that this creature, this being, this race actually does in fantasy lore, which sets a weird precedent, right? It's that Deus Machina thing where to get out of a situation, something like crazy happens, which hasn't been set up at all. So that I think there's some big things like the acting. It can come off a little wooden, right? But again, I think that's acting with green screen. It's a difficult thing, right? It's not easy, right? Being able to do things for like some, tennis balls, right? Believing that you're talking to someone or what I mean? You're being chased. There's a big monster in front of you. You have to give that emotion. It's not easy. And we can clearly see that here. The story itself, look, you can tell that Lombardi loves fantasy, right? You can tell that from the story. But I think the big thing with it is there's some great, incredible fantasy worlds out there. And there is this trap people can fall in when you're like, oh, I love that. Let me take something of that, something of that, something of that. And then you try and meld it all together. And you get this hodgepodge of a piece, like with things that don't necessarily make sense, right? And then these tropes, right? There's the whole princess and the jester. Obviously, it's meant to be this love story. At no point do you get the sense that they're actually in love, right? Or why would they be in love? Right? That's the big thing. Why would these be people? Why would they be in love? We haven't really seen anything to show us, right? The gist of how going back to Henry's village doesn't really make any sense. Right? There's a lot of things in here, but they don't all quite gel. Now, that's for me, right? That's for an older audience. I think for a younger audience, this will probably work. This will probably be enjoyable. I think if you are a fan of the evil fairy queen, right? We covered that a few weeks back. If you liked that film, um, oh god, there was another film that we looked at last year. I believe it was like the Secret Kingdom. You know, if those films are for you, if you enjoy those films, then I think Hale and the Jester, that's gonna work perfectly for you. You know, you're gonna fully enjoy it. Your kid's gonna love it. It's all gonna be golden. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's very dependent on what your kids enjoy. You know, what they enjoy. If your kids are older, you know, they love Lord of the Rings. I don't think they'll love this, you know? But if Lord of the Rings may be a bit much for them, right? They want something a little bit lighter, you know? As I said, something along the lines of the evil fairy queen, then Princess How will most definitely be the ticket. So yeah, it's a case of understanding, right? Understanding the things that your kids will gravitate to. But it is definitely something for that younger audience. And yeah, you know, I feel probably if this does well, there will be more, you know, because that's the way this is kind of set up. So yeah, they might have further stories in this IP to enjoy. But yes, Princess How and the Jester will be dropping on VODs, right, on the 21st of May. So there you go, people. There you go.